All right, we're all good to go. So, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning into this live stream interview with Jennifer Kirkland. I said that right? No, Kurland. I lied. I added a K. But Jennifer is actually running for governor of Michigan under the Green Party banner. And I am, for one, very happy to hear that because I am not a fan of Gretchen Whitmer. I'm not going to lie to you. I actually have some friends in Michigan who've ran for office who've had personal problems with that campaign. I mean, with them trying to influence even local elections, I guess, so they can coalesce around her in the general election and going forward. But I'm very happy to hear that you're running, Jennifer. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on, Niko.
Oh no, it's my absolute pleasure. So if you could just give the audience a little feel for what you've done in Michigan, why all the things that you've been involved in, which I know is quite a lot, and so that people just kind of get an understanding about what you're about.
Sure. So I'm born and raised in Michigan to two union parents. My dad was a sheet metal worker. My mom was a public school teacher. And so I'd always kind of been on the sidelines of politics, even when I was a kid. And so I ended up going to Michigan State for 2 years right out of high school. And when the money ran out and I was looking for kind of what I wanted to do, if I wanted to stay in school with loans or if I wanted to work, I had found an organization called Clean Water Action. And so I actually worked there for 3 years and I did door-to-door canvassing around our state on environmental issues. And then moved back home and fell into a career in banking. And I worked in retail banking, mainly during the Great Recession, working with small business owners and people just like, you and I trying to make it through the Great Recession. I bought my house when I was 24 and I became really involved locally. I started working our local elections as a precinct poll worker and then chairperson, which I've done since 2006. And I've been involved in lots of different civic organizations in my local community, and I ran for school board in 2012. So I was elected to a 6-year term. I've served as president as well as I'm its current treasurer at the end of my term. Nice. We've done a lot of systemic change in our school district. We were actually threatened with emergency management when I ran. And that's one of the reasons why I ran is because we were in deficit. We were being threatened with emergency management. And I thought I had something to bring to the table, especially because our teachers were taking an 11% pay cut for 2 years.
Oh my God, that's a lot. Yeah. Teachers already don't make that much money as it is.
I know. It was a huge sacrifice and it allowed us to get out of deficit and we're in a much better place now. So I went
you all fixed that problem is what you're saying. Emergency management didn't have to come in.
We have an amazing finance director. He is incredible. He really, down to the T, he was balancing our books. And, we actually ended up going all the way up to an 18% fund balance last year. We've dropped a little bit. We've spent some of the money on certain things that we need to in the school district. We have a very healthy fund balance now. So I ended up going back to school. I took the 15-year journey to finish my degree. And so my degree is in political science, public affairs from Wayne State University, which is a policy-driven degree. And so it was really interesting, I think. It gave me a lot of insight into political science and public policy specifically, being back in school and finishing my degree as an elected official and someone who'd been in politics for so long.
That's what I was going to say. Because I went to the military before I went back and finished school, and I feel like it gives you an entirely different perspective than everybody else because you're like I remember I used to sit in lectures and some people would come up with these like pie in the sky like alternative realities, how they think things work versus how things actually work. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not how that works. I need you to live a real life. And so I feel like it probably, when you went into college, you probably had a lot more focus and you knew you could take the information and then process it how you needed to continue to grow into your career, right?
Absolutely. I think it was probably the best thing for me to do is to finish my degree late in life because it really gave me a lot of insight. And it's not like I ever stopped being involved in politics. I've always been involved in politics. So having that, from 19 to 35 is when I went back to school and like full time to finish my degree. And that was just, a world of difference in terms of how I looked even at policy when I was 19 versus how I look at policy now.
True. So Obviously, there are a lot of problems in Michigan. I mean, everything from the obviously NAFTA caused a lot of problems, and it's still causing problems today. You have the Flint water crisis and how the corporations, it seems like, are trying to purposely harm people to gentrify the area. That's what I've been hearing on the ground. And there's plenty of things that are happening in Michigan now. My question to you is, and I'm sure everybody wants to know, what do you feel like the biggest problems are, and how do you feel like you are the best one equipped to address them?
So I think the biggest problem in Michigan is really Flint. It's still the biggest problem in Michigan. And it's not even just because it's the largest crisis that our state has ever had, but it's also because it's the canary in the coal mine for all these other issues around our state. So when you look at the issue of children with lead poisoning, 43% of the counties in our state have children with lead poisoning.
Wow.
So that's kind of ridiculous. It's not just Flint. And of course, we know that the only kids who get tested on a regular basis for lead are children who are on public assistance. So we don't even know really what the true percentages of kids with lead poisoning is, because kids aren't tested for it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not coming just from derelict landlords, which is what the state still is trying to push off.
Yeah, that makes no sense. I don't even know how they even got that to fly.
Yeah. I mean, our state, seriously, still, politicians on both the red and the blue side of the aisle like to claim that this issue of lead poisoning in children around our state is solely from lead paint and is not from our crumbling water and sewer infrastructure. But I certainly disagree.
Yeah.
We know that we have a ridiculous amount of lead pipes around the state. We know that we haven't done anything to improve or update our water and sewer infrastructure in my whole lifetime. So how does that make sense that that isn't even something that should be looked at?
Yeah. And I know that even more so, what was probably the biggest insult to me personally was when the governor tried to use the people's money to defend himself in court. That was the biggest slap in the face. I'm like, I couldn't even, I remember I was seething that morning, because isn't that just so emblematic of what we're dealing with all around the country? Like, you screw us over, you make millions off of us, and then instead of spending your millions to save yourself, you take more of our money to defend yourself. It's truly disgusting, to be honest with you. What do you think what do you think the main problem with Flint is, and what do you feel like you could do directly to stop it? Like as a governor?
Sure. So there's a few things. So right now, so the city does have their sovereignty back. And so
what does that mean in the context of Flint?
So it means that they now have the ability to govern themselves.
Okay.
So the emergency management and the transition advisory board are now gone from Flint.
That's good, because they were causing more harm than good, right?
Well, the transition advisory board left after the state forced Flint to sign a 30-year contract with Detroit's Great Lakes Water Authority. So there was some legal issues, and I think there's still some issues, really, truly as a whole, of racketeering around our state, how the emergency manager law was. I know, like most people who have been following this for a long time go, of course there's racketeering. It makes sense. But really, in the case of things like municipal bonds and how the companies that were used by emergency managers were also at the table with the state treasurer when they were discussing what to do to write the law. So I actually, because I've been on the ground in Flint since the beginning of 2016, I actually researched and I created an hour-long documentary on the crisis from all my research.
Oh, you should definitely provide us with a link afterwards, because I think everybody would love to see that.
Absolutely. It's on my website. I have a whole section on Flint on my website, and then there's a continued section that has my documentary, and it has all of my research points, everything that I gave to the state legislature, everything that I have on Flint is on my website, because I believe in transparency. But the kind of other issues with Flint. So right now, Eric Mays is the chair of their finance committee, and he is leading the charge right now in holding people accountable for the money that's come into Flint, And so the finance committee in the city of Flint is actually now starting to call subpoenas and asking people to come to the table to tell them where the money has gone and how it's being spent, because it's certainly not making its way to where it should be. It's almost like, you know, how there was all these issues with Haiti and Puerto Rico and all these organizations that got lots of money that were supposed to go to the people that really never, ever got there.
Red Cross. Yeah, sorry about that.
And that's what's happening. So it's at least very nice to know that there are some people still on the ground in Flint that are really still fighting for the people. You know, especially someone as an elected official like Eric Mays. But some of the other issues in Flint, you know, that we need to fix, you know, any kid that has lead poisoning needs to get additional supports in public education.
Yeah.
We know that they're going to have learning disabilities. We know that they're going to have behavioral problems. We know these things. And so they need additional funding in their school district. And of course,
that doesn't get talked about a lot at all. And I covered Flint on the ground as well, with along with some of my colleagues, Jeff Day and Sneha Sinha, and we interviewed a family, and it was sad. It was sad. We all ended up in tears by the end of it, because of just, it seemed like, I mean, just the hopelessness of it all. You know, like this, like there's literally no way out for some of these people. They're stuck. People who have been paying their mortgage for 25 years, expecting to retire in that community, are now stuck, and people, they're just like, I probably have lead poisoning, but what can I do about it? Yeah.
And it's not like they can sell their house, because who wants to buy real estate in Flint right now?
Corporations.
Yes. I mean, that's part of that's kind of like another section, is because the state and the county are still threatening people with shutting off their water.
Which is insane.
Foreclosures for non.
I'm sure that you would stop that immediately. I'm positive, right? On that.
I mean, not just in Flint. Also, you know, Detroit there was a news article today talking about how Detroit is still considering, and this is something that was started like 5+ years ago when Dave Bing was mayor, that they want to relocate people in Detroit. And so they're talking about shutting off the water to certain sections of the city to force people to relocate to other places in the city.
What's the reason?
Because they've just allowed, you know, neighborhoods to gentrify. And so they're
literally just saying, hey, we don't want y'all to live here. I mean, I'm sure this is more so about Black people specifically. Hey, we don't want y'all to live here anymore. We're going to shut off your water.
Yeah. 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 Like they want to redevelop.
I know Michigan is bad. Like I know Michigan is really, really bad. Like my experience there was not fun. I ended up getting pretty much, I got pulled over for quote unquote speeding. I made the mistake of driving a sports car that wasn't a muscle car in Michigan. Yeah. So they came on me quick.
And what city were you in? Because there's a lot of cities
right outside of Detroit, where that airport, like near the airport.
Okay, so you were probably in a city that, you know, if they see someone who's Black who's in a nice car, that they just pull you over automatically.
Yeah, and he pretty much he made up whatever speed he was made up, because I was doing cruise control, but he made up whatever he wanted to make up, and he asked me, "Do you have any cash on you?" And I was like, what? He was like, well, because I'm going to have to take you to jail if you don't have any cash on you. I was like, I don't bribe cops. And he was like, oh, no, this isn't bribing. He called it something else. And then I looked it up, and it turned out that Michigan, they legalized bribery. They literally legalized bribery.
We are one of the states that is the main culprits in civil asset forfeiture. We do not properly fund our police departments. And so because of that, a lot of local police departments have resorted to funding their departments through civil asset forfeiture, which basically means if they suspect that your possessions have been in some way, shape, or form attached to a crime, they can take your possessions. They
taking it too. And it's funny because I was like, well, he was like, well, do you have $100? I said, no, I only have 60. He said, that's fine. I was like, what is this? They didn't even give me a receipt, I don't think. He just was like, all right, we're going to have to tow your car, though. I was like, what? Yeah, it was wild. And you know, just as another side note, because I know that there's what's being coined as a martial law on the poor happening in Michigan right now, where people are getting their licenses suspended over petty traffic violations. And it's literally putting people in the hole thousands and thousands of dollars over a speeding ticket or a traffic ticket. And you get the speeding fine, then you get the responsible driving fine. And to my knowledge, it's over 700 million and probably more at this point in fines, where each of those people are not allowed to drive anymore. And it's mostly poor people.
And we certainly don't have mass transit. So once that happens to you, you certainly are automatically, basically sentenced to poverty. And especially in Wayne County, which is the county that I live in, I live right across the street from Detroit. I live right on the border. Wayne County has about 40% of our prisoners in our local county jails that are solely in jail because they can't afford bail.
Yeah, I've seen it. I saw it in Georgia too. So I know when I was wrongfully arrested, there were people there. I was like, what are you in jail for? They haven't charged me with anything. I can't afford my bails and I have nobody to call.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. So, and not a lot of people really, they say that they're going to address the prison industrial complex, but they all take corporate money. So I don't believe them. So, but I'm sure that you do not, right?
No. And of course, the Green Party doesn't take corporate money either. And so therefore, that's the best part about being a Green candidate, is it's very freeing, because I've gone to these forums all over the place for the past year. And you see Democrats in some instances do like the tiptoe dance around certain issues.
Of course.
Because there's certain things that the party tells them they cannot talk about.
Yeah. I know that game goes.
It threatens their party donors.
Well, so, it not only does it threaten their party donors, but it
exposes them.
Yeah, you're going to know. It's like, because you're going to do what we tell you to do. So you can screw yourself and say you're not going to do that, but you're going to screw yourself. So they don't. I'm glad that, like I said, I'm glad that there are other options, because it was unfortunate, in my opinion, that Bernie Sanders and Abdul El Sayed endorsed Gretchen Whitmer. Because, like I said, as well as I do, that she's a career politician. She hasn't done much, if anything, in her previous positions. And instead of holding people accountable for, in my opinion, a primary election that clearly had discrepancies, like Abdul losing in the largest Muslim precinct in the state, I'm pretty sure that everybody was a little bit, suspicious. Instead of fighting, which is what I believe. I believe we need more fighters right now. He kind of bent over, he bent the knee. And I think that has a little bit to do with Justice Democrats, to be honest with you. But
he also has connections to Mike Duggan.
Really? Who's Mike Duggan?
Mike Duggan is the mayor of Detroit.
Really?
Yeah, he was the director of public health for the city of Detroit. And
he's not been doing a good job.
He oversaw the largest number of water shutoffs in the city of Detroit.
Oh, what's Abdul's connection?
He was actually lobbied by the People's Water Board to call it a public health crisis, and he refused.
What's Abdul's connection to him?
No, that's Abdul. Abdul was public health director.
Whoa!
Oversaw the largest number of water shutoffs in the city of Detroit. And when he was public health director, overseeing that, he was lobbied by like a local activist group, the People's Water Board, to call it a public health issue. And he refused.
Wow. Well,
that's one of the reasons why he lost the city of Detroit. So like people around the state are like
remembered
this like big progressive and all these kinds of things. And the people of the city of Detroit are like, no, we remember that he worked under Mike Duggan and he worked with and for Mike Duggan and he expected Mike Duggan's endorsement. And so, no, he's not what you say he is.
Wow. So that's some interesting information, because I don't think that I knew that. I definitely don't think that most of my so you want to talk offline about that guy. We can talk about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's a guy who talked about not taking PAC money and then turned around as soon as he lost the primary and started a PAC.
See, didn't know that either. It's crazy how that goes, right? And it's almost like he was put there to prop up Gretchen at a certain point. Maybe he thought he could legitimately win. He turned around quick on Gretchen.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the Michigan Democrat Party purposefully stacks their primaries on a regular basis. So, for example, when they created the new, when they split the Detroit public school system into the Detroit Public Community School District, they had 70 people running to get on that board.
Wow.
70 people. Most of those people were not active people, but that meant that the people who had the money, who were the people that the party wanted to be on that board, were the people who came out of that mess.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, that's a normal thing in the state of Michigan. Is the Democrat Party.
Michigan is bad, and it's in my opinion, what makes Michigan Democrats so dangerous is that they like don't have anything to lose, because Michigan is like, it's kind of like well, I would say now not even half and half, because it used to be a big union state, but
we are so purple. When you look back at the past 4 gubernatorial races, our entire state, with the exception of like 5 counties, have flipped colors.
Yeah, so
our state, the people of Michigan are very purple. Like the people of Michigan are like, we just want whoever we think is the best candidate. And they're certainly really fed up with the choices this year. You know, if I was wealthy and could self-fund my own campaign, there's no way I could have lost. And so, you know, that's why having this grassroots ground game and people, I have a lot of, you know, name recognition in, you know, just where other candidates do not, or other candidates are looked kind of down on. So it's really interesting. I've actually had a couple of Republicans that are running for office at certain forums come up to me and tell me that they're impressed with me and that they like me better than their nominee.
Wow. That's, well, like you said, they're purple. I mean, from what I have seen in my experiences with Michigan, is the Michiganders, they really are, they're not complicated people. They're really not. They want their jobs. They want, you know, their health, which is the thing.
We want to be able to go to the beach.
They want it, right? I don't know if I'm stepping near that lake, though. That's cold. They don't want to have to jump across that border to Canada to have health care. And
well, you know, it's that larger issue of every single community is affected by these beach closures every year. But looking at it from a statewide perspective of how often and how frequent and how many of our beaches have these issues, it's really this just ridiculous problem that everyone addresses kind of on like the local level. Like, oh, okay, let's do a beach cleanup here at this beach because we have issues at this beach, and blaming Canadian geese all the time. That happens a lot with the E. coli issue and things like that, when it's really sewage overflows.
Yeah.
Because we've never properly upgraded all of our water and sewer treatment plants around the state. So anytime it rains and we have a heavy rain, water and sewer treatment plants are not built to handle heavy rain.
What?
Yeah.
Water plants aren't meant to handle heavy water.
Yes. Around yes. I know, right?
Man, America. Good God. I'm sorry. I do interviews a lot, and every time I hear about what's going on in these individual states, I'm just like, what the it's you know, it's depressing, but at the same time, I'm always giving hope whenever I meet candidates like you, because you are, without a doubt, like, you're top 3, top 4 in my personal opinion. I mean, like, you're right up there with Tim Conover as far as the most qualified to do the job. And you've lived, I mean, you have the experience. I mean, you've done everything from, you've been elected, but you've also knocked on doors. You worked for nonprofits, and you know, you've been in leadership, and you went to school. You know the struggle of trying to pay back student debt, and you went back later and used that experience. You didn't quit. You know, you stayed persistent. You went back, and you're still using those experiences instead of trying to profit, you know, off of your degree. You're still using your experiences to try to help people. So that's not, I mean, there's a lot of good candidates out there, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're qualified to do the job. That doesn't mean they talk to people all over the state. And you have a feel of the heartbeat of Michigan. And so that's good. I'm glad that you are running. Really quick, what website can people donate to your campaign?
So my website is www.kurland4michigan.com. So that's KURLAND, the number 4, Michigan.com. And then just /donate will take you to my donation page. If you want to look at my Flint stuff, just do /Flint. I mean, there's certainly like links within my website, but if, you know, those are the couple points where people want to go. I try to make everything on my website really user friendly when it comes to like clicking. And I have a whole actually section on my website, which is Save Our State. I had a friend of mine who does some coding, make me an interactive map of the state of Michigan.
Oh, nice.
So all the counties in the state of Michigan have stars, and the Great Lakes have stars. And you can click on the stars and it'll tell you the water issues in those areas. And you can click on them and see how things in like the fish advisories are affecting everybody around the state, and how the things when it comes to beach closures are affecting everybody around the state. So
awesome.
I'm a researcher.
Now, the last question before we go that I have to ask you, because this is something that I focus on a lot, because I believe that voting is important, but I actually believe it's the last step in the democratic process. What do you plan on doing, if anything at all, on the electoral integrity?
Yeah, so I actually have a whole section on my website on elections.
Nice.
And I have like a whole election platform, and it kind of draws from, you can tell that I've been a chairperson for elections and I've run a precinct, and you can also tell that I've worked in banking. So it's really kind of a combination of my knowledge on those two things about how we can fix our electoral process in Michigan when it comes to audits, making sure that we have audits on the local level, on the county level, and then on the state level. And then also making sure that we hand count every ballot at the end of the night and make sure that those physical hand counted ballots match the tabulator at the end of the night. As like an additional process, which I've always had my precinct do, because I'm kind of AR like that, and I've worked in banking, and I want to make sure. And it does not add that much time.
Yeah, I'd imagine it really doesn't. It's like not that people think.
I mean, you're thinking about counting maybe maximum a few hundred ballots. Maybe in some large precincts, you're going to get up to like 500-600. But when you have 6 to 8 people working, you just have 2 people assigned to a stack, and you can count them all and make sure that your ballots and everything match up.
Well, that is what I'm talking about, because there's so many people running in. They just say, we want to preserve election integrity. And I'm like, nah, that's not going to cut it. Like, election, like, one of the reasons why once again, Tim Canova has gotten so much support is because he is adamant about making sure, no matter whether or not he wins, he said he's doing an audit, a mandatory audit. And that's one of the first bills that he wants to introduce once he gets into Congress. So I'm glad that you're doing the same thing. And I wish you luck going forward. One more time for the crowd, what website can they go to donate to your campaign?
Sure. And I'll add real quick too, if anyone who lives in Michigan is interested in being a precinct challenger or a precinct poll watcher this election, I do have a sign up on that elections section of my website to get trained before election day. And I'll be working on that next week and doing like an online training for everyone. So you can go to my website at www.kurland4michigan.com, KURLAND, the number 4michigan.com, and then /donate. I would love any financial help that anyone could give.
Awesome. And I'm going to translate to you. If you don't want your election to be screwed over, make sure that you go to her website, because you've been asking for this for everybody that's on my Twitter. They've been cheated. We know. We're aware. Jennifer's giving you an option to be a part of the solution now, which, once again, top 3 most qualified candidates that I've interviewed since I've started interviewing candidates, Jennifer. Seriously, you have all the boxes checked, and I truly wish you luck going forward.
Thank you, Niko.
No problem. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. Make sure you go check out Jennifer's website. Go sign up to be a polling monitor. And more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.